this, had contacted me about putting the Iowa Collector on the Newman portal. He was going around making sure that all the state organizations had their past information on there. And we obliged them. We sent in a batch of information. I emailed him and said, could we put more different information besides Iowa Collector, so all the scrapbook information, for instance. And he said, sure, that would be fine. So we packed it all up and sent it down to the Newman portal. So that took care of a lot of our problems. Was number one, where do we put it? Number two, who has the space, the digitized computer space to store it, as well as the manpower to take pieces of paper out of a scrapbook and digitize it and put it back in a notebook. And the Newman portal did it gladly, all for us, for free. So that took care of a lot of different problems. Back in May of this year, I attended the Early American Copper, the EAC convention down in St. Louis. Lynn Augsburger is a member of EAC, very active in a lot of different organizations. Like I said, he is the director of the Newman portal. And he very nicely, and the Newman portal is located at Washington University in St. Louis. And he very nicely took personal carloads of attendees, whoever wanted to go see the Newman portal where they did everything. And of course, I obliged. So here I am with Kimberly. Kimberly is a scanning technician at the Newman portal. And what was she working on at the time? She was working on the INA bulletins at the time. So I was down, just the timing worked out really well, where they were finishing up the material we had already sent them. There's about like 3 scanning technicians and 1 or maybe more, I guess you call it editing people. So here's the gal sitting at the computer editing the information. This is, she was looking at one of the photos of one of the old INA conventions at the time. So she's the one that kind of puts it all together after it's scanned into that. After it's all scanned and everything, Lynn Augsburger emailed me and said, hey, you guys, the INA, hit the eSylum newsletter. So, oh, can't see it. Anyway, down here it says, INA newsletter scanned into portal. So it was an article in the eSylum, and it was very nicely done, type of thing. So I got to read the real small article snippet of what they had to say about the INA material that they scanned. One of the interns at the Newman portal, intern Kellen Horde, said he always likes to learn about the history of American numismatics, and he read our newsletter. And he said that it was very interesting, it was worthwhile reading, and he got a good flavor of what numismatics and the coin clubs were like in the late 30s and early 40s when we formed ours, and so he read all of this. And here's one of the several things that I've said, you kind of go down the rabbit hole and you get off onto tangents. Here's a tangent. For those not familiar with the eSylum, the Numismatic Bibliomania Society is the club, national club, you can join for book lovers. So you can join that, but for free, you can get a free weekly email called the Asylum is the print copy of it, the eSylum is the digital version. So if anybody's interested in getting a weekly copy of the eSylum newsletter via email, all you have to do is email whomrun@gmail and say, sign me up, and you can have it too. So a lot of the eSylum weekly, pretty dry. I skip off a lot of it, but there are also articles of interest there. So I think it's worthwhile subscribing to. And it's just one more email that you might get, you can delete easily too. But there's some interesting things on there. It talks about new books coming out and evaluations of that kind of thing. Okay, so we've got most of our material digitized and available to all. Dean Parr has made links from our webpage, home site, to grab it more easily. Sometimes the Newman portal is not the easiest thing to pinpoint and try to find exactly what you want in a hurry. So links are a very nice thing. So if you go to the INA homepage, go to links drop-down menu and click on clubs, you get a list of all the links that we have listed. And down near the end, the end of it, we have the Iowa Collector. So you can click on here and go right into all of the past issues of the Iowa Collector. And then the two scrapbook pieces, the 39 to 49 and the 49 to 59. So the two different ones. So you can click on those to get right to it. And that's a nice way of getting in there. So, how about if we go to INA? Okay, so here's the INA webpage. And click on links and clubs. And I said, scroll down to, there is where we are, the Iowa Collector and the other portals. So the Iowa Collector, you can click on that. Oh, I guess I'm not connected. So that's how you get to it. Very easy to go to our homepage, and you can get right to excuse me, scrapbooks and that. That brings us into, and then we're talking about the Newman portal, brings us into, to me, you can't talk about the portal without talking about Eric Newman. So if people aren't familiar with his amazing numismatic life, it was worth doing. If only we all had the opportunity and took the opportunity that Eric Newman did in his numismatic life. He was a very brilliant man. He was an engineering degree from MIT, from Washington University. He got his law degree, and he also, his normal job was, his in-laws were in the family shoe business that had multiple stores. So he was like the lawyer, accountant for the shoe business for a long, long time, as he did that. But as a kid, like we all started, his grandfather started him off on pennies a long, long time ago. And he also had a local coin shop. And the local coin shop was owned by Burdett Johnson. And this guy kind of took him under his wing, so he mentored him, and he made him do numismatic studies and research. In the book, Eric Newman said as a kid he wanted to buy this one coin that Burdett Johnson had, and Johnson would not sell it to him. He said, here's a book. You go read this. When you can come back and tell me about that coin is when I will sell it to you. So that's the kind of mentorship he started off with and grew up with. Later on, as adults, Eric Newman, he was an avid paper money collector of Missouri notes. When the estate of Colonel Green came available, when Colonel Green died, and I don't know if you know him, I'll talk about him in a second, has a fantastic collection. He wrote to the lawyers dispersing the Colonel Green collection and asked him about wanting to buy the Missouri notes that were in it. And that started off a long-term relationship with the estate of Colonel Green and Eric Newman. So Eric Newman partnered, if you will, with Burdett Johnson. And again, if we were all lucky enough to have this, to have access to a fantastic collection and have a mentor who could teach us about it, disperse the coins and sell them, and also finance the whole thing. So basically, Burdett Johnson kind of had Eric Newman go buy these coins in big lots from the estate of Colonel Green, and Johnson financed it. And they had an arrangement where they split the monies and profits, and And Eric could pick out, coins. We have first choice at a lot of the coins and things like that. So again, if we were all lucky enough to have a mentor and a financier and have access to a collection like the Colonel Green collection, we'd all be in pretty good shape. But that's his life story type of thing on where he came from. Going on another tangent here. Colonel Green, if you don't know the estate and the collection, I guess I call it a collection, it's a hoard of Colonel Green. Very interesting family. He was raised by Hattie Green, his mom. She was the richest woman in America in the late 1800s. She was also known as the Witch of Wall Street. She was very stingy, was tough on business, and did everything he could in how she accumulated the wealth that they did. But she was stingy. And I remember reading that Colonel Green broke his leg in a accident as a kid, and she wouldn't spend the money to send him to a doctor, so it healed improperly, and he always walked with a limp after that. So this is how he grew up, with not spending any money but having money. When his mom died, he and his sister inherited this fortune. He went completely overboard and spent money right and left. And he liked collectibles. He bought stamps and art and coins. And all the big dealers back then knew that he bought all these nice coins and just wouldn't care what price he paid for it. He would pay whatever the going rate was plus some. So and I've never understood this, how he accumulated the coins that he did. But he must have had a lot of dealers know that when he walked in, he would buy whatever they would present to him. So they would always have fantastic stuff on hand for him to buy. If you're interested in Colonel Green's story, which is an amazing, weird family story, the book that tells you that is The Day They Shook the Plum Tree. So it talks about Hattie Green and the whole family, and a lot about the whole life of Colonel Green. But again, weird, but it's amazing as it applies to numismatics. So, Eric Newman bought, over a series of 3 or 4 years, I believe, from the estate of Colonel Green, bought batches of coins. These are the kinds of batches that he and Burdett Johnson were able to buy and disperse. This is an example they had that, can't read this. This quarter was like the finest known bust quarter, 1796 sold. It sold for like $1.5 million. Okay, this is one coin out of a batch, and a batch means 2,000 quarters that all look like this. Kind of a thing. That's the kind of hoard that Colonel Green had. That they would buy these batches. At the time, it might be $5,000 or $10,000 for a batch of quarters, but they were all, just a few dollars a piece at that time, but since have been dispersed. So this is like one example of one small batch of the Colonel Green collection that went through Eric Newman's hands. One of his favorite pieces that he never sold until the very end when his estate sold it was the George Washington medal. There's one medal with George Washington's head on it, just a single coin that was minted, and it was carried by George Washington as a pocket piece. Okay, and so that was in the Colonel Green hoard, and that is the piece there. It has sold, I don't remember what it sold for, but it was many millions type of thing. But the history, that's what Eric Newman loved. He was known to buy, if he had a choice between 2 coins, one better than the other one, he sometimes would buy the lesser of the 2, so he'd have more money to buy other things for study. So he is a true numismatist who studied coins, as opposed to looking as an investment and everything. Does anybody know what this is? This is a case that held nickels. There's 2 buffalo nickels in it, but there's 6 blanks. Anybody know what that case was for? It was full when Eric Newman bought it from the estate.
1913.
Okay, but there's 6 slots. Anyway, I'll give you a clue. The one that's missing there is a trial piece made in copper type of thing. So that got popped out. Okay, but the other 5 slots were for the 13 Buffalo. So Colonel Green owned that. He owned all 13 Liberty Nickels in his hoard. Okay, Eric Newman bought them. He and Burdett. So for that envelope, that case, they paid $1,000 for it. Okay, and with the deal that he had with Johnson, he got to Newman got to pick out his choice of nickels. So he picked out one. They sold, Burdett Johnson sold out the rest, and things like that. So this is like still to me an amazing story of Colonel Green, number one, on the hoard and how you possibly could accumulate this quality and the stuff that he did, the quantity and quality. But again, being at the right place. Newman just had the relationship with the estate lawyers of the Colonel Green. That's why they ended up like able to buy all of it. They didn't want to sell it to anybody else, type of thing. So he had kind of an exclusive thing over the years to buy the collection. Newman was a fantastic researcher. That's what he loved to do. He wrote 13 books. And as you can see from some of the titles there, he liked the early stuff. He did colonial currency. He did colonial coinage, Fujio cents, things like that. He wrote the book, The Fantastic 1804 Silver Dollar. So he was a researcher and a publisher. That's what he loved to do. And if you're interested in Eric Newman, the book is called Truth Seeker, The Life of Eric Newman. And shoot, I keep thinking about it. It was written by Len Augsburger, okay, and a couple of other authors. Len was telling us the stories about, it was back in 2012, 13, 14, so not all that long ago, is when Len got to go over to Eric Newman's house. They sat around the table, kitchen table, and he interviewed him, and he talked to him many, many times to research the book. And he said Eric had a perfect memory, could, just recalled all these really interesting stories and told him all about it. And then Augsburger and the others wrote it in this book, and again, it's an extremely interesting book. I've got the books I'm talking about, I've got up here if you're interested in looking at any of it. Another, I think, amazing, interesting piece about Eric Newman is when he was being interviewed for this by Len for his book back in, like I said, 13, 14, he was 102 years old. He died in 2017 at the ripe old age of 106. So even at 102, when he was being interviewed for his book, Len said he was as sharp as a tack and just as nice of a guy as you can ever meet. I unfortunately never met the man. I saw him at 1992 EAC convention once, but at the time I was a new rookie greenhorn guy in the copper world, and I was just in awe of all the big name guys, so I never went up and shook his hand or anything. I wish I had now, but quite a guy. He also, along with his brother-in-law, Tettenhorst, who lives in St. Louis, they put together, they collected half cents. And I remember in the 1992 EAC convention, they made a display, the two of them, and it was sold not too long ago, called the Missouri Cabinet is the name the pair went by. And they put out their collection of half cents. And I don't know what, you can't say enough about it. They had a complete set by variety. So they had every known die of the whole series. Start off with 1793, the first year. 4 varieties, first 4 coins, all mint state, 3 of the 4 with red, that kind of thing. is like a third or something of the whole collection were finest knowns of that variety. So it's like, again, he had access to a lot of this stuff, and over the years was a true connoisseur. So, again, a little bit digressing, but I think a worthwhile sidetrack here. This is all funded by a foundation that he created called, it's called Epinus, Eric P. Newman Numismatic Educational Society. So from royalties from his books, from sales of the collection, he's donated all this, and it's an educational fund that perpetuates all this free scanning and availability of information. Like I said, we're grateful for him to be to have the money and be a philanthropist in order to let the rest of us enjoy things. While visiting the Newman portal, Len got to take us to most of it has been dispersed, but these are the remnants of the Newman library, his personal library. So it's in a cage locked up, and just like it is here, this is just like a small library type of a thing. It's not as big as the A&A kind of stacks that you can see out there, but this is, like I said, the remaining pieces that haven't been sold off and everything, but everything's scanned. This is the guy in the foreground here, that's Len Augsburger. So like I said, he was gracious enough to let us tour and do anything we wanted there, so it was kind of fun bumming around. And that leads us to the ending part here, is the Newman portal itself. If you haven't been on the Newman portal, it's just like an internet for coins and literature. It's full text, so that if you want, a particular page of a particular auction catalog or something, you can go into it, print it off, review it, that type of thing. It's got copyrighted information on it. So if you go on there and look for the first edition of the Numismatist, it's on there, but to access it, you have to be an ANA member. So it's still copyrighted, but it's on there, and if you're an ANA member, you got full access. Same with like Coin World and all the other publications that are in print and copyrighted. So, but you can search and find where it's located. You can find Coin World, 1984, page 42 is the information you want on the search that you're interested in. It'll cite it, you can go to it, but you can't see the full text of it. So some of it's limited as far as, like I said, copyrighted material, but it's there and you can search for it. This is the homepage of the Newman portal. And again, there's just a website that you can go onto, and I've added it onto my phone and tablet type of thing so that you can get right into it. It's easy. This is the homepage. Some of it is a little confusing. The first thing that fooled me was, where's the box to put my search term in? Well, it's this. I'm used to seeing search term boxes being empty, being blank. This is a solid black bar. This is where you hit here and enter into it. So I said the very first thing was a little bit confusing, but you can search a search term there. There's a lot better ways, and I'm not good at it, but you have to just use this in order to get good at quickly getting into the piece that you want to. If you just do a search term, okay, here I just put in chain sent, and you get 4,000 records. So I don't really want to thumb through 4,000 records to see if there's anything there that I'm really interested in. So there's other ways to narrow down, drill down what you're specifically after. And so I said, I think the best way is just to play with it to see what it does. Easy way is hit the library, call down, okay, I'm going to look for a specific auction catalog. Okay, see, I bought a coin that said it was plated in the Heritage 1984, sold at that catalog. So go down to auction companies, Down at the bottom, just it lists all the auction companies they have. Here, this is Heritage. And you find out that Heritage, when you do that, gives you 500 entries. Go down, this is all the years. So you just select the year that you're after. And that year, there's 7 entries, auction catalogs of that year, and you choose the one that you're after. And since I'm not connected anyway, this is what you get. There's different ways you can view this. Full page. This one is, I think what you call it, a folding book. So anyway, you can hit the icon down here to see which format, how you want to portray it. And this is in the dual page scrolling format. So on this page, you can just hit this side of the screen and it'll flat forward. So you just page forward, page back like a regular paging book. Again, you can blow that up, you can print pieces, you can do whatever, so it's a lot of different things. It's different. I do a lot of stuff on phone and tablet and nothing on computer because I don't even own a computer, so I do so much on here. Each of those formats is a little bit different. They each act a little bit differently, so you just have to kind of get used to that. To get into it, I highly recommend going to, if you just go to YouTube and search Newman Portal or something like that. This is like a 5-minute, 45-second tutorial on the Newman Portal. That's worth 5 minutes to see. Like I said, the library, scroll down to look for something, things like that. So I'd highly recommend spending 5 minutes to get the lay of the land on the portal. Extremely valuable tool that we all have access to and would highly recommend it. So that is it. A little bit about a lot of things, and maybe you'll whet your appetite for one subject that you can look at and dive into later, because there's so many interesting things that we get into.